I know what you're thinking. Another NoFap video. Over the last 2 years, I've been flirting with this whole NoFap thing on and off. I don't really count the days because that would probably just drive me insane. But I was just more conscious with my behavioral patterns surrounding the topic than my younger self would have been. And I think when I say this, it kind of transcends gender differences, whether you're male or female. As kids, we probably spent a lot more time than what was healthy shaking the snake. So dumb, bro. Alright, anyway. I know my longest streak of being a NoFap virgin lasted for about 3 to 4 months. But before I even started or really knew about NoFap, I kind of subconsciously had this idea that it was probably beneficial to retain your sexual energy in whatever form that might take. But does it give you the so-called superpowers that those channels talk about? And I think you know what I'm talking about when I say those channels.
NoFap superpower, 100% success. NoFap 30 days, guaranteed superpower. NoFap day 90 superpower. This NoFap superpower will change how it feels to be on NoFap.
And if you're still watching this video and don't know, NoFap is a website and a community forum that serves as a support group for those who wish to give up pornography and masturbation addiction. I guess you could say it's kind of like an AA for people who can't stop choking the chicken. Anyway, as you know, everybody's different and they'll probably take away different things from NoFap, but as a whole, is it worthwhile? Scientifically, there's been evidence of a 45% boost in baseline testosterone levels of men, which was the peak boost after about 7 days of NoFap. More testosterone means more energy, more muscle building, more confidence, and you become more attractive as a result. And even though most of the things I'm saying relate to males specifically, this still holds true for females. You are more present in the moment, more motivated, and overall just
a better version of yourself.
And we don't only lose nutritional content after knocking one out, but over 10 times the amount of vitamins and minerals
Is required to just synthesize spermatozoa and sperm fluid.
There's also that psychological benefit of avoiding post-nut depression, which can help you feel good about yourself by doing something positive and actively delaying gratification so that you can focus on other goals in life, which can all bring a relatively good amount of satisfaction up here. In my experience, having that psychological edge is great and has helped me to do a lot more productive with my life than I would have.
Now, this anecdote might only relate to me specifically because I don't eat meat. I do supplement, although it is arguable whether it is the same for meat eaters.
But there was a point in my life where I would get constant brain fog, headaches, feelings of fatigue at around the same time the sun went down. And at that specific point in my life, I was not abstaining, I was not supplementing for my diet, and doing quite a bit of manual labor and physical exercise. When I was on my biggest 4-month streak, it kind of just flew past. I was highly focused on school and exams and, getting all my stuff done. And by the end of it, I actually kind of stopped having sexual urges at all. I literally just got bored one day after 4 months and just decided to wake up my dick. Regardless, I think the major problem with the whole thing is the accessibility of pornography, which as a 12-year-old, I was able to stumble over and begin my journey of self-pleasure. And 12 is actually pretty late. I personally know people who started at about 8 years old, even younger. I think NoFap is a bit extreme, especially to those who go on 30, 60, or 90-day streaks. But hey, if being extreme works for you, then who am I to tell you to stop? Because sometimes being extreme in your beliefs can get you into really good positions in your life, especially if those beliefs are beneficial, which on the whole, I think NoFap is. I think it is pretty beneficial. The best lesson I've learned is to moderate my consumption of porn. In fact, just moderate my consumption of everything, especially when it comes to NoFap, right? Not forcing yourself to abstain, but just being more conscious and not actively fulfilling your desires of self-pleasure day after day. Honestly, I wasn't really satisfied with solely the physical effects of retaining one's seed for months on end. But I stumbled across a more spiritually related justification of NoFap, and perhaps the fact that Bible thumpers worldwide are still preaching things like abstinence from masturbation or abstinence from sex itself until marriage to this day. So I went deeper and came across a man called Santos Bonacci, who is a self-proclaimed syncretist. Now, this man, in some sense, has decoded a pretty irrefutable meaning to one of the spiritual teachings of the Bible. Now, stay with me, because what I'm about to show you might be indicative that these things that the average person like you and I think are outdated might actually hold some tenets that are beneficial that we haven't even thought of. He calls it raising the chrism, And while it predominantly has roots in Abrahamic religions like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, it is also referred to as raising of the Kundalini in Hindu and Buddhist faiths. The theory details the process of attaining super consciousness or enlightenment that raises from the base of the spine to the top of the head. These stories, the story of Jesus Christ's ascension and the ascension of the Kundalini snake, somehow have independently arisen in these different religions, but have the exact same meaning. That's because these stories are analogies with disguised truths. Santos says, 99% of the people believe the Bible is a historical book to be taken literally. It's not. It's about you and your path to enlightenment. You are the protagonist. Nobody's going to save you. All of these parables are written about and for you. The temple of God is your body, not a building. And this specific parable that I'm talking to you about in this video is detailing the monthly process that occurs within biological males, the same way biological females have their own complementary process that happens every single month. Inside the brain is a thin, irregular, sheet-like neuronal structure of grey matter that is attached to the underside of the neocortex in the center of the brain, which is called the claustrum. Scientists describe the claustrum's function as enigmatic, meaning it is difficult to interpret and mysterious. Yet, with the highest number of connections per millimeter cubed than any other part of the brain, its anatomy is remarkable. Research shows that the claustrum receives input from almost all regions of the cortex and projects back to almost all regions of this cortex. The claustrum's role within the sacred secretion is also believed by many to be the true story of Santa Claus, who comes from the North Pole down the chimney to give presents, only to make his return back to the North Pole in one solar cycle or 1 year's time. It is interesting to note that Christmas, celebrated December 25, is usually on the 4th day after the winter solstice, which is December 21st in the Northern Hemisphere. During this time every year, the sun appears to stop moving south, or dies, for 3 days, and then makes its return to moving north on the 4th day, or Christmas Eve. Jesus, the Son of God, likewise died for 3 days, only to return. It is within the claustrum that the secretion process begins. In science, this sacred oil is called cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF. The composition of CSF is dependent on the activity of surrounding brain tissue, as the wiring of the brain is based on our own past beliefs. This includes our thoughts and mood. Scientists state that the three main functions of the CSF are to protect the brain and spinal cord from trauma, supply nutrients to the nervous system, and remove waste products from the cerebral metabolism. The claustrum passes the secretion onto the pineal gland, which adds its melatonin release to the energetic liquid. The secretion then travels down the spine's 33 vertebrae, and it's interesting to note that Jesus was 33 when he was crucified, through the Pingala nerve connected to the pineal gland, and the Ida nerve connected to the pituitary. These nerves are also known as the Kundalini and extend all the way down the spine. They meet at the sacrum at the end of the 33rd vertebra. The point of connection is often referred to as the mother and father energy coming together and producing a seed, which is given the nutrients it needs and raised in a thriving environment. At this point, about 1/3 of the CSF re-enters the venous system. Eventually, this fluid circulates back up the spinal column by the sacral pump, a regular rhythmic motion between the occiput and the sacrum. This is where it begins its return journey, like Christ rises again, back up the spine, through the ventricles of the brain, and towards the medulla and the brainstem until it reaches the vagus nerve. Here it sits dormant for almost 3 days, as Jesus was said to be dead for 3 days. After 2.5 days, once the oil leaves the hypothalamus, the oil ascends to the pons. The pons are beside the medulla oblongata. The grey matter of the upper brain vibrates stronger and faster when enough of the oil returns and anoints the pituitary and pineal glands, amplifying the brain's innate abilities. When this substance, which is preserved and saved by an alkaline body and practicing sexual abstinence, returns to the glands, the switch is flipped, at which point your senses are overtaken. As it is reabsorbed again into the veins, new blood is produced and dormant brain cells are reactivated or awakened by the higher potency of this chemically charged CSF. Additionally, this flow of CSF opens the thalamic gate, allowing the energy to move through the thalamus and access the reticular activating system. It is this system that is responsible for our levels of wakefulness and experiencing greater levels of awareness. At this point or return, you realign the natural chemistry of the body, and all of our millions of brain cells are highly active. This arouses the neocortex, which oscillates into higher brain wave patterns. We are now operating at a high level. This sacred secretion happens once a month, 12 times a year, when the moon rests in your sun sign, as this is the sign you entered the world into. It is not caused by the moon or your sun sign, rather your astrological sign is used to track what stage you should be in. The sacred secretion gives full use of the mind by fully activating the pineal gland if it has been decalcified, which in turn activates the true spiritual self and reconnects the physical person with universal energy. These are the true superpowers that the NOFAP community are accessing without even actively knowing it. But with all that said, only you know what works for you, so experiment. Take on board what you resonate with and leave what does not appeal to you. And that was my honest NOFAP journey.
If you don't squander that essence, that sexual essence, it ascends again and goes back up to heaven. It's also the story of Santa Claus. Why he comes down the chimney is because this juice or this whatever substance actually passes what's called the claustrum, which is where they got Santa Claus.